Fiveish Fangirls, I love you, and I'm one of the Fiveish. In fact, I'm the biggest one of the Fiveish. I am the 6th Doctor Colin Baker, and I wish you all well. Have fun.
The tangents we continue all the way to episode 463 of the Fiveish Fangirls podcast. And sometimes to save the day, all you gotta do is push a button. Welcome everyone to this week's episode of the Fiveish Fangirls podcast. So glad to join us. Let's start off like we do with a virtual table and see who's joined us this week.
This is Holly from Wisconsin.
And this is Rachel in Indianapolis, Indiana. Hello.
Hello.
Yes, we're a little ish this week.
Yes.
Brittany has not finished said episodes, all of the episodes that we're going to be discussing, and she doesn't want to get spoiled.
Which I do not blame her.
At this point is an accomplishment, so yeah, I'm not going to begrudge her that.
No.
Yeah. And then, unfortunately, Jared has gotten sick, and he's the one that normally watches his and Chrissy's kids, so Chrissy has to watch her own children.
All the best to Jared. Speedy recovery.
Can't leave them to themselves yet. Not quite yet. So we're a little ish. That being said, it is not just Holly and I carrying the torch this week, as joining us to talk about Doctor Who, one of our favorite topics in the entire planet, and somebody who's definitely as big a Whovian as the rest of us, is DJ Nik.
Yay!
Hey everyone!
Return.
Yay!
Yes, like a bad haircut, I've returned to grace your podcast. But I'm really, really happy to be here. Thank you so much for having me on. And yes, of course, we're all Whovians here, and definitely looking forward to discussing this latest series of this great show.
Mm-hmm. So first up, we do need to do the news. Not a whole lot, although Marvel was nice and gave us a little treat today. Our first look at Agatha All Along, the newest Disney Plus series that will be dropping in September.
Yes, and Catherine Hahn is just getting better and better and better as she goes through her career. I remember her. The first role I remember her in was in Crossing Jordan. If you can find it somewhere streaming, it is so worth it.
She was I know her best, even though she wasn't a regular, but she popped up, every so often on Parks and Rec.
That too, yes.
Which is funny because we get a little reunion here because now Aubrey Plaza is now part of the MCU. You do not know how excited this makes me. Her and Catherine Hahn on screen together is going to be hilarious.
Oh yes. This got all the good Halloween vibes. I'm just like,
yes, the fact that this is coming out, in the fall, just in time for spooky season, and it does look like it is definitely gonna, this is after WandaVision. We saw what Wanda did to Agatha, and this is the fallout from that, and Agatha's not happy about how everything went down. So there's going to be lots of magic and dark stuff and so it looks like it's going to be perfect for Halloween, which I am down for. So you're muted, Nick, if you were trying to say something.
No. I mean, the only thing I can say is
I saw your lips moving, so.
Oh no, I was just going to say that I'm not a trailer person, so I tend not to watch trailers because I like to go in completely cold. But judging by you guys' reactions, it sounds like it's going to be a very promising show. I'm looking forward to it, but I'm just not one to watch trailers because sometimes they end up spoiling it, and sometimes editors don't do a great job at making good trailers to where it's like they almost tell you what's going to happen. And I guess that's kind of why I kind of steer clear of trailers, really. At least, but that's just me, obviously.
Yeah. Well, fair enough. Fair enough.
Mm-hmm.
So that's exciting. And that's actually all we really got in the way of news. But San Diego Comic-Con Fandom Christmas is in like 2 weeks and some change. So it starts 2 weeks from this Thursday. So I think it's going to be kind of all quiet ish until then. And then everything's just going to come out all at once.
And see which company breaks the internet first.
Exactly. I've not seen yet how big of a presence, speaking of Marvel, how big of a presence Marvel is going to have, because this is also a D23 Expo year. So, because last time this happened, they held off at San Diego because they knew they were going to be at D23 where they could have more of the limelight because it's the company that they're part of.
So, and who knows,
no
competition. It might be that way again.
Yeah.
And the only thing I had seen, I was kind of doing some scrolling, and I'm not 100% accurate it is, but supposedly FX is going to have a more of an interactive outdoor experience for their shows, whatever that means. I didn't really go into clicking, so
yeah.
I'm trying to remember what kind of shows FX has. I mean, what we do in the shadows, but I think that's either on hiatus or they're working on the next season. Hard to say because it's been a while with what shows have been on FX and not.
I'm still waiting for the announcement for the new season of Yellow Jackets because they said it's going to be starting again soon, but we'll see when it comes to FX. Like you said, Holly, it'll also be interesting to see whether Warner will have a bigger presence compared to previous years, especially since the Gunverse for DC is supposed to be starting anytime soon. So you'd think they'd want to start promoting their stuff because recently they have been the big absentees when it came to Comic-Con.
So wait and see what happens in a couple weeks. So that being said, as we wait for Fandom Christmas to deliver, hopefully, we do have other stuff to keep ourselves occupied, like a new episode of Gold Standard. How appropriate that Nik is here. So we're still awaiting the next Best Picture winner. So in the meantime, we are slowly hacking through the list that we made when we pulled our respective heads together, and we did one of Zan's picks, which is the 1925, so pre-Academy Awards, silent picture, The Big Parade. So that was interesting.
I'm kind of looking forward to next week, to the next one we have coming up, which is going to be another major U-turn compared to going from World War One to 80s animation. I think that's fantastic. Yeah,
between us and then what our guests are bringing to the potluck, we are kind of all over the place. But hey, it gives us a good cross section of cinema. So
yes.
So we got that going for us, I guess. You can go and listen to that episode. And then quickly, because I don't really have a whole lot to say, but I did want to give a quick recap of InConJunction, which was this past weekend here in Indy. Of course, if you've heard me talk about it before, it's a small homegrown, more literary science fiction fantasy convention. So definitely a lot of authors, a lot of panels about writing and storytelling, and also some science as well. I had a table in the vendor hall. It was at the same hotel that it was at last year, which is a new for the convention venue, but not a new venue for me, because that is the hotel that Starbase Indy used to be at, and now Starbase Indy is at the hotel that InConJunction used to be at. So I'm familiar with both venues very well. So of course, hotel conventions, not very large in general. The vendor hall was in a different ballroom this time, and unfortunately, as much as y'all were poking fun at me saying you would gladly switch, you know who you are, Nick and Heather, it was cold in the vendor hall. My table was right next to the wall where the thermostat was, so we could see what it was set at. It was at 61 degrees Fahrenheit.
So you had like icicles on your desk?
Practically. It was so cold. By Sunday, I went in Friday with just light jeans and some sandals and a t-shirt, and I had a sweater to put on just in case. And by Sunday, I was wearing full-length jeans, shoes with socks, a sweatshirt, and a jacket on top of it, and I was still cold. So
you didn't grab one of those cute little adorable four-legged friends that are nice little body heaters?
Yeah. If they would have, I probably would have. But they're not my dogs to kidnap, unfortunately. That being said, they did grant my request and make sure that I was right across. I was not next to, because we were in different rooms, so the layout was different. But I was on the table that was directly across from vendor registration / lost and found, which meant that I got to watch Archer and Scout from across the way. And occasionally they would come over and let me, Archer would let me give him scritches. Scout, they're blood brothers as far as, puppy genealogy is concerned, but they definitely have very distinct personalities. And for the most part, Archer's very chill. Scout is not. So Archer, more than happy to let me give him all the scritches in the world. Scout, not so much. Scout does not care. Scout just wants to do what Scout does. So besides it being freezing, that's the worst. If that's the worst thing that happened all weekend, which it was, I can't complain too much. So I did do two panels, as I mentioned in our last episode. I did my From Sci-Fi to Wi-Fi, how geeky women throughout have made their mark throughout history, which is the same topic but a different group of women. And I think it went over really well. A smallish turnout, but it was a later evening, Friday evening panel, so but I had a decent turnout. I think just based on some of the reactions from the audience, I surprised people with a few of them. Unfortunately, I got a little excited and probably put too many women in there, because I ended up doing 5, 5, and 4. I probably should have done 4, 4, and 4, because I ended up running a little long. Thankfully it was Tammy Jo, who was right after me, so it's like we know each other. So she was she's like, you're running a little long. I'm sorry, but she was nice about it. So it's also the nice thing about these conventions: when they're smaller, you know everybody. Lots of familiar faces. So that went well. Now I need to know that, probably because I do it in 3 chunks, 3 eras, that for that time slot, that probably 4, 4, and 4 is probably ideal quantity wise. Which just means that I'll have to do it over and over and over again, which is kind of the point, because there's just so many amazing women. And then Saturday morning I did what I've called a fandom fusion, which is really just about how you can incorporate all your geeky and nerdy stuff into your everyday life, either based on clothing or stuff in your house, how to incorporate geeky stuff at work, all the things. So I had a lot of examples in the slideshow, and then I also brought a whole bunch of my own personal stuff so that people could see, yes, I do walk, I'm not just talking the talk, I walk the walk. And carry my geek cred anywhere and everywhere I can. So we discussed everything from very subtle geekiness, like a keychain on your keys, or maybe a small piece of jewelry, all the way up to decorating your house like mine, where you can't look at a wall without seeing something geek related, even in the bathrooms. So anywhere in this house, everything is geeky from floor to ceiling. So that was fun. We had some technical issues with the projector, but once we got that working, it went fine. Again, not a huge turnout, but still, it was fun. We had a good discussion. What audience I did have, they were more than happy to pipe up and give their 2 cents and that sort of thing, and look at my visual aids that I brought with me. So yeah, that was fun. And then the rest of the time, I spent at the table, talking to folks as they would stop by, again, saying hi, to catching up with people I do know, making some new acquaintances, made friends with the gal in the booth right next to me. She's actually going to be at PopCon in Louisville and at GalaxyCon in Columbus in December, so I'm going to see her again. At least twice. And she also does some because she's a crocheter. She does some crochet workshops at Gen Con, but because those are a separate thing, I'm not likely to see her, but that's okay. But that was kind of funny. I was like, packing up, getting ready to leave, and I was like, I'll see you in like 6 weeks in Louisville. She's like, I'll see you. So that was fun. And of course, I would get up from the table occasionally, wander around the vendor room, I bought some stuff, like you do, and poked my head in to occasionally, when I get to and from the bathroom, and I poked my head into the Doctor Who room a few times. I got there really early Sunday morning, so I couldn't even get into the vendor room yet, but thankfully the Doctor Who room had been going, and they were like halfway through. Well, we're going to talk about these episodes. They were halfway through Dot and Bubble, and then Rogue was starting as I could get into the vendor hall. So that was fun. And then they did their raffle that they do every year. They have a whole bunch of different lots of bundles of prizes, and you can buy the raffle tickets, and the tickets go to their annual picnic that the local Doctor Who fan group has in the fall. So I ended up buying some raffle tickets and put them in my respective choices based on what was in the bundles. I did end up winning one of them, so yay. So I ended up winning bundle number 8, which is my favorite number. So I got some, I don't have it near me, but some copies of Doctor Who magazine and some other stuff, and some Wonder Woman socks. So yay, geeky socks. So that was fun. And yeah, and then when I filled out my towards the end, they were handing out surveys to the vendors and stuff, and they're like, it's like, what did you like best? Oh, seeing the same faces and making new friends. And like, what did you like the least? It was freezing in here, which I'm sure was a complaint by a lot of us, I'm sure. And I once again asked, I was like, next year I would like to be near the puppies again, please. So we'll see what happens next year. But yeah, InConJunction, it's a fun little con. It's easy. It's I was telling the gal next to me, who's in the booth next to me, because this was her first time coming to InConJunction. She was asking us, what it's like. I'm like, well, it's on the smaller side, but it's steady. The people that come are very what's the word I'm looking for? Very I want to say regular, but that's not the word I'm looking for. Consistent. There we go. The books that come are very consistent. You know, the group of people that are part of a lot of people are part of the Circle of Janus, which runs the organization and runs the convention anyway. But it's like I see the same people year after year after year after year, either as vendors or attendees or running panels. So it's not a huge number of people, but it's a guaranteed steady stream of people. So yeah, it was InConJunction. Always the first weekend of July-ish that's closest to the 4th of July. That's so whatever those dates are next year. If you want to start thinking about coming. So there is that. So next up, feedback. So we got some feedback from Shalane. She said, I only know Martin Mull from Sabrina the Teenage Witch with Melissa Joan Hart and Nickelodeon's Danny Phantom, and yes, Clue, and yes, it is Jingle All the Way. Thank you, Shalane, for answering our trivia. It wasn't trivia, but yeah, making us more sure in our elderly memories.
Yes.
To be young again. Yes, Elijah Wood did come to FanX before. What's next? A Harry Potter trio? Doubt that'll ever happen. I was surprised when they announced Cole Sprouse from the Disney Channel is coming. I think he's the first former Disney Channel star to come to FanX. Maybe we'll have a few more Disney Channel stars, like one of the Boy Meets World actors. Well, I can't say. Again, Shalane, tell me if I'm wrong. I don't think Cole would be the first Disney Channel person to come, because I'm sure Ashley Eckstein has been to FanX before, right? I imagine that. I know she has, right? Because she was at FanX last year, right? Am I completely blanking on that? I'm pretty sure, but correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm pretty sure she was at Salt Lake FanX last year, and then because they don't do Sunday, she came and flew from Salt Lake to Cincinnati because I saw her at Cincinnati. So, but again, Shalane, you can correct me if I'm wrong. I maybe she's not considered that big of a Disney star because she was just a side character on That's So Raven. I don't know. Is this the first Indiana Jones movie you girls have talked about? Yes. I don't have much to say on Indiana Jones, but for the most part, all the Indiana Jones movies I love. I love Short Round and Temple of Doom. We all do. He deserves his own movies. I also did play Lego Indiana Jones, and I never finished it. I was going to finish now, but we gave it away. Darn. So I know Rachel talked about the Indiana Jones films on Gold Standard. Yes. Well, we did 2 of them.
The best 2, I think.
Yeah. We did those on Patreon. Become a patron, you can go listen to those. But anyway, I do have a friend who is obsessed with Indiana Jones and Tomb Raider and other mythology. Basically, he's an actor who loves musicals and Shakespeare, and he has an album coming out here soon. Cool. If he wasn't an actor or a singer, he wanted to be an archaeologist or a history professor. He loves Raiders and Last Crusade because he grew up in that region. That's cool. I also did love the Indiana Jones ride at Disneyland. It was scary, but at first it was scary, but then it wasn't much Indiana Jones. I wasn't much of an Indiana Jones fan until Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. I thought I enjoyed it, but for most people didn't. It has its moments. That's the thing. Yeah. It's like the premise is a little wild.
Yeah.
That being said, it's such a good cast that you kind of just don't care. Because again, you got Harrison Ford, who's awesome. Yep. You got Cate Blanchett, who's amazing. We've got John Hurt, in one of his final roles, towards, he's no longer with us.
And the return of Marion.
So, it could be worse. So they really could have like phoned it in or something, but thankfully they didn't do that. Then I got Lego Indiana Jones, and that's when I decided to watch the movies, but I didn't get to see Dial of Destiny. I saw Barbie instead last summer. That's fine. So we'll see if there would be a TV series of Indiana Jones characters like Short Round. The possibility. They thought about doing. They actually announced at one point an Indiana Jones TV series for Disney Plus, and then it never went anywhere. So maybe that Kihei Kwan is, in everybody's mind again. Maybe we'll get it. Mm-hmm. And speaking of movie screenings, a couple months ago they did a screening of all the Spider-Man's movies of Tobey Maguire, Andrew Garfield, and Tom Holland. Ooh, that's a lot of movies. Nice. That's cool though. Also going back to DreamWorks and Disney, I read Jeffrey Katzenberger retired from DreamWorks. That's probably all the better for all of us. Also, speaking of stage productions, there's a stage production new musical of The Prince of Egypt. There was a How to Train Your Dragon Arena Spectacular. Yes, I think that's what I saw a video of. I wish they had some How to Train Your Dragon at the new DreamWorks land at Universal Studios. All they have is Shrek, Kung Fu Panda, and Trolls at the new DreamWorks land. Plus, Shrek and Prince of Egypt are the only DreamWorks stage musicals. Wonder if they'll do a Trolls Broadway musical. God, I hope not.
I like Trolls, but that would be just a little bit too much.
Yeah. Shrek's fine. Prince of Egypt is fine. If you need something to take your kids to, you got those. There's a SpongeBob musical. You're fine. Plus, all the Disney stage stuff. So, I know Return to Neverland got a theater release, the same with Jungle Book 2. I mean, the films are part of the Disney animated feature films for movie theaters. Okay. Speaking of Despicable Me movies, I only saw the first Minion movies. I heard some people didn't like it, and that's why I didn't go see the second Minions. Same with the other Illumination movies, but I did love Super Mario Brothers. Yeah, Illumination, when they hit it, they hit it. But when they don't, they don't.
Sing 2 is incredibly awesome.
Yeah. I only saw the first Sing. I liked it well enough though. So.
Ooh, Sing 2, that one I fell in love with.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Also, Illumination was going to do a remake of Cat in the Hat, but the rights went to Warner Brothers. And I read the actress who plays America Chavez is going to be in it, and Bill Hader. I think she means a animated Cat in the Hat.
I hope so. After that, we got to the live action.
We don't need a repeat of that Michael.
No, Mike Myers live action. Oh,
me being a hardcore Dr. Seuss fan, it ruined. I was so upset about that when they came back.
That was a little nightmare fuel inducing.
Yes, I'm sure Shalane will clarify in her next feedback. So, let's see. It's kind of interesting that years ago they made live action movies based on cartoons, and same with books, and they were hit and miss. Years later, they turned to animation. Yeah, like I said, they just keep trying things and throw stuff at the wall, see what sticks.
Yeah.
Last thing I promise. Basically. It's okay, Shalane. You can send us as much feedback as you want. Hopefully, How to Train Your Dragon will be the only live-action remake movie DreamWorks does, because years ago they did Peabody and Sherman, which was perfect to be an animated movie, but a live-action Rocky and Bullwinkle movie, no. Which they remade that into animation, as it should be. Mm-hmm. They did do Dudley Do-Right in live-action. Yep. I don't know if that was DreamWorks, though. But it's and I think the same era of cartoons.
And wasn't Brendan Fraser Dudley Do-Right?
Yes, he was Dudley Do-Right. Yes. I don't remember which studio made that, but I just know that era of cartoons, the Rocky Bullwinkle Show, Dudley Do-Right, Peabody, Mr. Sherman, they've done them in some form or fashion in a full-length feature movie. So. Mm-hmm. Says one thing I forgot to mention about Disney sequels finally get theater releases is because they are part of the animated feature films. For example, Moana 2 will be Disney's 63rd animated feature film. Yeah, I mean, they still count them whether they get released in theaters or not. But yeah, I know some people, like, I know there's somebody in the box people, which is Lou Mangello, the WW Radio folks family, their Facebook group, that there is someone actually watching all of the Disney feature movies as they were released in chronological order.
Wow.
So I could understand, like keeping track of which ones were released, so understandable. Yeah. Then we got some feedback from Aaron. His subject line said snakes. Why did it have to be snakes? Hello, my Fiveish hosts. It's been a minute since I've had something to really say, but when you touch upon a franchise I adore, I must chime in. We got your the hair on the back of your neck raised up there. Indiana Jones has had a bit of a rocky road, but the original trilogy is a classic. The first will always be a fantastic movie full of fun, adventure, and funny quips. Temple of Doom, I think it's more flack than it deserves, but I will say that Willie is such a bad character. It was like Spielberg and Lucas took as many horrible damsel in distress tropes as possible and put them into a single character. Yeah, we didn't mention it, but at the time that they made the Indiana Jones was starting to become a thing, both George and Stephen were going through really rocky relationships, romantic relationships. So both Marion and Winnie, I think, got a little coated because of that. But then, Stephen ended up marrying Kate Capshaw, and they've been together ever since. So, I guess that's a win. Then there's my favorite, Last Crusade. Even as a kid, I just knew that I loved both the story and the dynamic between Connery and Ford. To this day, I think it's a crime that Connery didn't get a supporting actor nomination for his role. I actually have a fond memory about this movie regarding my grandmother. She was not the kind of person to be into movies like this, but she once watched it with me because I insisted. Now, she was a deeply religious person, and when I got to the part where Henry slaps Indiana for using the Lord's name in vain, she let out a small cheer, looked at me, and said, "That's right!" Whenever I watch this movie, I always think of her. I like to think that Crystal Skull doesn't exist. As a physical media completionist, Crystal Skull was the first time I refused to buy a movie to complete my collection. I remember seeing the DVD for $2 and still thinking it was too expensive. But the universe finds a way. When I upgraded to Blu-ray, I was forced to buy all 4 as a box set. Then there's Dial of Destiny. I liked it more than I thought I would, which is to say I willingly purchased it. As for other media, I grew up reading some of the Choose Your Own Adventure books featuring Indian. I quite enjoyed them. But I loved all those books, so no surprise there. Take care, Aaron. Thank you, Aaron. Oh, your grandmother sounds like she was quite the lady. That's funny. Gotta love religious grandmas. Something about them. Nick is he's trying to hold it in. I'm sure coming from a nice Jewish family, you know a thing or two about religious grandmas, right, Nick?
Yes, that's why I was trying to spill my drink, or spill out my drink while you mentioned that.
Yeah. Alrighty, so moving on to this week's main topic, which kind of hinted at, is what they are calling Series 1 of Doctor Who, which is Ncuti Gatwa's first full season as the Doctor. So we got 8 episodes with Russell T Davies as the showrunner again, and giving us a little bit of a couple of through lines actually. We get the through line of the threat from the toy maker saying that his children are coming. and also trying to find out more about Ruby and her background, and all that fun stuff. So I don't think we necessarily need to go through each episode in depth because well, I've already done 2 of them with Holly on Next Stop Everywhere.
Yeah. So, and I've done one with Nik.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
so
Holly and I did Empire of Death, so there you go.
Yeah,
yes.
So Next Stop Everywhere's kind of got it covered with these voices for some of them. So
and I did Rogue.
Need to rehash. So that being said, how do you guys feel now that we have reached the end of this particular grouping of episodes? And obviously spoilers, that's partially why Brittany is not here, because she's not finished it. But obviously we'll go into spoilers. She knows not to listen. What do you guys think of Ncuti after all of these episodes, and what they did with what Russell T Davies did now that he's back in charge?
He's got the range. Love him. Looking forward to season 2. Russell T Davies, please don't take another page out of Chris Carter's book. This was brought up in Next Stop Everywhere, but I'm bringing it up here. Questions were answered, but then there were more questions that were brought up, and there's still some red herrings, and it's just like, don't do this.
Yeah. I was saying that in our chat as a a bit of a as a non-spoilery warning to Brittany. That I was like, okay, you will get some answers.
Yep.
But not everything is going to get answered because Russell T Davies is a troll. Much like
worded,
every
Rachel.
showrunner that the show has ever had, really. Yeah. So.
I think it was a solid run for Ncuti. I mean, I think Ncuti and Millie had great chemistry. That's what I think was obviously the most important part of it, is how's this Doctor going to be, and how's the chemistry going to be with his new companion. And I think the 2 of them knocked it out of the park. My only issue was, and I kind of, once again, kind of mentioned this a little bit on Next Stop Everywhere as well, is granted, it's very hard to have a solid season. The problem was, I think, at least me personally, it kind of began in a bit of a rocky beginning. I mean, Space Babies and Devil's Cord, I was like, I'm a little bit worried. Boom made me have faith again. And same with 73 Yards, Dot and Bubble. Rogue, I was like, I don't know. And then I think they stuck the landing with the last 2 episodes, which were great. So I'm glad they picked it up towards the end. I mean, I can get why other folks might have enjoyed the episodes I didn't like. By and large, I think it was a solid series. It was very sad to see, kind of people on social media, because unfortunately some people on social media can be really horrible. And they're just like, oh, I'm jumping off. This is not my Doctor. This is not Doctor Who. I don't want anything to do with this. I'm like, fine, go watch paint dry. Go ahead. But
bye-bye. You don't need to.
Yeah. I mean, I think one can be critical of a show that one loves without being mean-spirited. Or rather say, I'm out. So I approached this, more from a critical perspective of constructive criticism, just personal things that I liked or I enjoyed. I did think that to a certain extent, as I said, the first couple of episodes, they could have been better written. But as I said, because I like a certain kind of style of Doctor Who, I could like more of the tension and more of the almost horror aspect of it, which they definitely did later down the line. And bringing back classic villains like Sutek, I was like, that is fantastic. I'm right there. Sign me up. So I
did not see that coming.
I don't think
didn't
anybody
at all.
I don't think anybody saw that coming, which I think makes for a great surprise. But I was so happy, because then everybody rushed off to watch Pyramid of Mars.
Same here.
And what's wild is like, we have the now that we've gotten all the episodes, we have the benefit of hindsight, and we could go look for the hints.
Right.
And some are more obvious than others, and even some of here I am, like some of them may have not been intentional, but this is Russell T Davies we're talking about. Pretty much everything he does is intentional because he's a huge Whovian to begin with. When you get these people that know the history of the show, they know what they're doing. And even early on in The Devil's Cord, which, one of my favorites, because if I had access to the TARDIS, that is immediately where I would go, is somewhere in the Beatles history. That would be my first choice. Enough. It's something Beatles related. So whether it's the Rooftop Show or whatever, I would pick something. I'd be like, somewhere where the Beatles are still together and performing. We talked about this on Next Stop Everywhere, the fact that the Doctor, as the maestro, is changing things, changing history. Ruby is all like, well, the future can't change that much because that's where I come from. I've got these memories of 2024. So the Doctor takes Ruby back to 2024, and we see this absolutely just wasteland of what used to be London. And the maestro is like, hey, you like my work? The Fourth Doctor did the same thing with Sarah Jane in Pyramids of Mars.
Yep. And also, I think, I think would have been a big clue was when they say he who waits. And I was kind of thinking it might have been Omega because, of course, I was like, kind of another guy trapped in another dimension. And it never crossed my mind that there was somebody else trapped in another dimension, which was Sutek. And I was like, they're probably going to bring back Omega or somebody else. But there you go. Good job on RTD and bringing back a classic villain. Like you said, Rachel, RTD is a classic Who fan. And I love that he digs into the classic Who lore, which is brilliant.
Yeah. Yeah. There's just, he even knew, and this is the thing, is this is having a showrunner that knows the source material, but also knows the fans, and giving us this face of this woman that would keep popping up. And I'm terrible with remembering faces after only seeing them once. So it wasn't until it was pointed out and they started showing like screenshots of where we'd seen her before where I was like, oh, okay. Because my brain is not wired for like remembering what people look like after the first time seeing them.
Were you underwhelmed by that the whole twist at the end didn't really come out to be anything?
I don't think
the twist was an actual twist.
Yeah, because that's I think it's brilliant. The fact that they seem to be building up to this woman being somebody like super important, and then like when we start getting like the coming up with in the next episode we get the like the little trailer commercial things at the end of episode will tell us about the next one, and they're like Susan Triad. Of course, everybody, just like the Doctor, hops on the anagram. It's like Triad with an S. That's an anagram for TARDIS. The fact that her name is Susan, and it's like, oh, this is this has got to be important, and it's like, no, it's not actually. It is, but you've got the anagram wrong. It's the wrong part that you're focusing on. And I think RTD knew that we were going to do that.
Oh, of course.
When everything fell out, when we got the actual reveal, all I could hear was the Eighth Doctor in my head from the movie going, silly humans looking for patterns where there aren't any.
Or here's another question. Here's another question for you, because Holly and I kind of got to answer this question, on Next Stop Everywhere, but what did you make of the big build-up of Ruby's mom ending up being just a normal person?
Again, I think that's. I don't think everything in storytelling has to be this huge revelation. And I don't mean just Doctor Who. I mean, look at any sort of IP that's got like some big world building to it. they've kind of got us like somewhat Pavlovian trained for some of this stuff that we, you know, if there's a mystery, we expect, you know, when we get the answer, it's going to be some, you know, oh my God, jaw on the floor, like revelation. When sometimes it just needs to be Scooby-Doo. It was old man Henry all the time in a mask. Right. You know, it's not that big of a revelation. You know, it's not zombies. It's not a, you know, an actual ghost. It's just something more mundane than that. I don't think everything has to be like, oh my God, this is going to change everything for the rest of all of eternity.
And I think fans would have probably complained more if Ruby's mom turned out to be somebody really, really majorly important.
True. That's also true.
Yeah, I wonder we've been there, done that. I mean, we did that with River.
Yeah, in fact, do we need a repetition? Probably not. You know, you probably want to add something different. The one thing that also I was wondering is, I wonder whether we'll ever get the if granted we might not even need it and we can make up our own minds about it, is the whole concept of Ruby making it snow out of nowhere.
I still think there's something there to that might get, and then the whole thing too, we're all focusing on the anagram of Susan Twist, and we only get vague nods to Mrs. Flood, played by Anita Dobson. I'm wondering if Miss Flood doesn't have more oomph that we don't know about, that she's the one that we need to be worried about.
Oh, I would think she has to, considering the fourth wall breaks.
Oh yeah.
I don't think that they. I don't.
She said.
Yeah, it's one thing to have Susan Triad's, you know, this actress's face pop up in every episode, and then in some episodes she's not even that important. You know, she's giving, you know, the Doctor and Ruby their tea while they're in the canteen at Abbey, you know, at EMI Studios. So she's not, you know, necessarily an important figure in that particular plot, as opposed to, you know, she's the face of the ambulance in Boom. So it's, you know, it's at least the part that she's playing is important. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's her face.
Well, heck, she was even in the episode with Donna and the 14th Doctor when they visit Newton for the gravity, because she's asking, "Hey, how's your Navity? How's your thing going?"
Yeah. So, you know, she's kind of, you know, she was more kind of just like a little Easter egg, but the fact that Mrs. Flood is just actively being like, it's in our face that she is not just a face that we might occasionally see. She is breaking the fourth wall and talking directly to us.
And just the way she closed that out, it just, when she delivered those lines, it just chills went down my spine. Like, oh,
and Russell T Davies
Stuff's gonna hit the fan.
Yeah, RTD being the troll that he is, he's like, once you all find out about Mrs. Flood, y'all are just like, you know, your minds are gonna explode, and nobody has figured it out yet. Of course, we have no idea when that's going to be.
Right.
You know, it could be when we get the holiday special this year. It could be when she's going to get, she's going to be, you know, something that gets dragged along for a couple of seasons. We may not get our answer for a while, is the thing.
And I don't think Anita Dobson knows too much, or if she does, she's following along right with Russell and just kind of playing us along.
Yeah, I'm sure she knows what she needs to know.
Yeah,
I imagine it's very much like, you know, I hate to invoke the name of that IP that shall not be named, but you know, we know that one of the actors, while not told everything, was told enough so that they played their character a certain way.
True.
So I would imagine that, you know, she's not completely in the dark, because they don't want her deciding to make acting choices that are going to be completely incongruous to when we get, when the penny drops. So, but and she's a seasoned enough actress that I can imagine that she knows how to keep her mouth shut.
Oh, probably.
Not also, everyone is a blabbermouth like Tom Holland.
Right.
Yeah. And I think she has the experience, I suppose, where he still has, I guess, the impetuousness of youth. But I think also the thing is, another something else I was kind of wondering about is, do we want to see Susan Foreman return at any point? Because granted, Carol Ann Ford is not getting any younger and is doing all the big finish stuff, but do we want to have the Doctor eventually meet up with Susan?
I mean, I'd be good either way, or maybe just something real brief, like even just some recorded audio that they could just kind of play off of her, a hologram, and not, if she doesn't feel comfortable recording, they could still at least do something computer generated, hologram or whatever to make it work. I mean, I'd love to see it, but I don't know. I'm torn between the two. Yes, I'd love to see it, but then again, I don't know.
Because it was a big point in this series as well of kind of the Doctor acknowledging the fact of having, not really abandoned. Well, he kind of did abandon Susan because he opened the TARDIS door. She went out and he buggered off in the TARDIS. But the thing is, it's kind of like the fact that granted, as we said before, RTD loves classic Who, and it was a nice callback to that. But it would be interesting to see whether that will ever get readdressed, because it seemed like it played a pretty big part when it came to how this Doctor was operating, especially with his exchanges with Ruby. So it'd be interesting to see whether that ever gets readdressed, or it's simply like the Doctor thinking of the past and what has happened to him and just leave it at that.
Yeah, because this Doctor is still emotionally guarded. Those are the things that the experiences the things that the Doctors experience in their, at this point, a very, very long life. That's not just something you just get over in one day and one by generation. But this Doctor definitely has been more open about talking about their past. Mentioning Susan, talking about the Time War, and things like that. So, I mean, it would be nice to finally complete that circle of, Hartnell's going away message to Susan in the first place, saying one day I shall come back. It would be nice to finally actually do that. But at the same time, from what we know, Susan went on to live, a life of her own as, on Earth as a human, and did her thing. I mean, she's popped up in Big Finish, so it's not like she's completely unaware of what's happening outside of her, little human bubble on Earth. I mean, that's just what it's one of those things. I think it's hard. It's kind of hard to say because I don't know exactly how it would work, like what the circumstances would be, and I think that makes a difference on whether I would, whether it would be like, this seems phoned in as opposed to something that seems to come naturally, if that makes sense.
And like you were saying,
totally.
Nick, on Next Stop Everywhere, that if they are going to bring her back, it needs to be done in such a way that respects the character, and that you're not going to face a whole bunch of backlash for, why did you bring her back this way?
I mean, already we remember all the backlash that we got. I was happy with it, but remember all the backlash we got when it came to Timeless Children and the Doctor is potentially immortal. I mean, I remember that was that caused a huge wave and a huge backlash. There was like, how can the Doctor be immortal? This ruins everything and so on. I'm like, no, it doesn't really. But there were people who lost their minds over that. So forget if they actually do that. They bring back Susan Foreman, who is, one of the key pieces to classic Who. You mess with people's universes, they will literally, lose their minds. So that's why as I mentioned earlier, I think that they're being very careful with how they want to do it if they end up doing it. If they leave it alone, I don't mind. I mean, I'm not like claiming, out there going hashtag bring Susan back. I'm happy the way it is. But if they do bring it back, I hope they do it in a, like I said, that's the thing, respecting the character, respecting the lore to a certain degree. We know it's very hard to keep track of a show that's been going on for almost forever. It was here before us, and it'll probably be here after us. So it's one of those things where you're like, it's very, very tough. I mean, I know that, like, it's like, I guess, when we think of like Star Trek, where I've heard that they've kind of broken their own rules multiple times because it's hard to stay in canon. You kind of have to blur the lines here and there as much as one want to keep canon straight. But I'm curious to see what happens next, and whether it's Susan or not. I'm sure Russell T Davies will surprise us.
Of course, I say that, and at the same time, like, I'm such a sap when it comes to to callbacks. That the minute that Carol Ann like appears on the screen in whatever form or fashion, I'm like, oh, this is wonderful, like I was having like getting a little verklempt in Empire of Death when they get in the little memory TARDIS and Mel immediately gravitates and pulls out. They got the Sixth Doctor's coat. And she just pulled on the sleeve and looks at him like, "Oh, my Doctor!" And it's like, it's just the coats. And then like when she's struggling, and like she's cuddled up with like the Seventh Doctor's jumper, and I'm like, "What is that?" It's like they're just costume pieces of previous Doctors, but it's still, I'm like, "Oh, this is so beautiful." I love the callbacks.
Pity we didn't get K9 as which to Holly's point.
So, I say now, I'm like, oh, I'm not sure, but like if it did, suddenly Carol Ann Ford's on the screen as Susan, I'd be like, this is the best thing ever, probably.
Well, I'm sure we probably all would have that reaction, no doubt. And speaking actually of also crossing paths, do we think that the 14th Doctor will resurface at any point? That 10 will make a return, or do you think he's just now off in the distance doing his thing?
Maybe
because that was also
not.
a point of contention. The fact is, where was the 14th Doctor when Sutekh was wreaking havoc?
Right, and I even correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't Ncuti's doctor say that he felt somehow kind of not there, like he was torn apart? So maybe we have to bring them back, and in order for him to feel whole, maybe the 14th Doctor they have to recombine. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe.
That would be the most logical, unless they want to do a spin-off show of the 14th Doctor adventures on Disney Plus, because we know Disney Plus loves their spin-offs.
Well, and with anything with David Tennant, is just going to be like, it's going to get gobbled up by most everybody. I know at the moment he's got some people that don't really care for him, but those people can suck it because they're wrong.
And we're also getting a unit spin-off as well, so you wonder whether it will be...
Supposedly. I haven't...
There haven't been any updates on that.
Yeah. No, and I mean, there's a Stephen Moffat page on Facebook that's going around posting stuff, but it's not actually him, it's a fan page.
Yeah.
And they've been posting the stuff with Martha and the unit. Until I see something from BBC or Disney Plus, I'm kind of like, okay, I'll believe it when I see it.
Yeah. I mean that page, it is a fan run page. For the most part, they have been
accurate,
pretty accurate. So as opposed to something like the Mirror or the Sun, which again they can suck it.
Or CBR News,
UK
comic
tabloids.
Yeah.
But we'll see. So yeah, because I even went looking to see if there was anything from like Freema, and she hasn't posted on her social media as consistently as some other people. So but yeah. So yeah, it's overall I think it was a solid start. I think Ncuti is finding his footing as the Doctor. I think he seems to be really, really enjoying and embracing the role, and I think he gets how complex the character is. And as honoring the incarnations that have come before him while still putting his own mark on it, which is really the best thing that we can ask for when it comes to when a new Doctor comes in and takes control of the TARDIS. I know we had a few Dr. Light episodes in there, which I thought maybe it was because they were in production the same time that the Barbie movie was in production, but from what I read elsewhere, actually, like the show he was on before,
Sex Education.
Sex Education was not done yet, so he may have been pulling double duty. Also, some of it may have also been Barbie as well. So I don't know. But even the Dr. Light episodes were still really good. Like Boom, I mean, it was just like, hello.
73 yards for that matter. I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, which 73 yards, like I'm still trying to wrap my head around.
Yeah.
That. And it was funny because
we ever got an answer as to who that woman was that was whispering in everybody's ear either.
Or what she was saying.
That too, yeah.
I think the old lady was old Ruby.
Yeah.
That
she had been stuck in this time loop for who knows. And the whole but still, like, I want to know what the hell she was saying that was making people like run away like that. Like, what do you say to someone that makes her own mother not want to be near her, which makes all of UNIT not want to be? And what's funny is, like, when we go back to UNIT for The Legend of Ruby Sunday and Empire of Death, and they introduce, Ruby gets introduced to Kate, and I'm like, well, they've already met. No, wait, that was during the time loop. They don't remember. Neither of them would remember that. So.
And it was great they brought back superstition when it came to this particular series because of what happened prior with the toy maker and everything else. That now the whole thing of superstitious things are now part of the universe of those. I enjoyed that because you kind of have that blurred line between, I suppose, magic and science, which is kind of always been a thing of Doctor Who. That was cool.
Yeah. I had something and I forgot what it was. Dang it! I hate when that happens.
My fault.
That's okay. I'm also dealing with post-convention, like, brain done. 3 days of socializing and being around people. My brain's like, yeah, stop. So I also like the variety.
There was a good selection of episodes.
We had very futuristic. We had period. We had strange alien worlds. The look and feel. Like it. Like if you pull up like on IMDb it lists all of the episodes, and there's just like one screenshot from each. Like you can tell it's all Doctor Who, but they're all very distinct. In their each look. Like Dot and Bubble, like I don't think we've seen a color palette like that in Doctor Who, and I don't know how long. Just all the like the pastels and everything, and them going back to Bridgerton area time period for Rogue. They did a really good job of making that.
It was very Wes Anderson, Dot and Bubble.
Yes, yes, it was. So, and I have to say, oh man, Ncuti's doctor just broke my heart at the end of that episode. Like our main character, whatever her name was, I can't remember. She's just so like one-dimensional. It almost doesn't matter.
Lindy Pepper, that's what it was. Lindy Pepperbean.
Yeah, Lindy Pepperbean. I just wanted to be like, she was just so stupid. And not in like I understand like every people's intelligence levels, we're not all the same. I get that, but she is so like willfully ignorant about like everything, and that is so frustrating when people just absolutely refuse to take agency and maybe learn and do something for themselves. Like she's just so passive, and it's like, oh. But I also understand that the society that they live in has created her to be like that. Like all of these people are essentially extensions of this Fine Time company, and as we made these people essentially like little avatars of what are supposed to be human beings. But when she and the rest of the people just they're like, we're just gonna go off and colonize somewhere else, like the colonizers that they are, and the doctor's like, no, I could take you somewhere else, with other people, and you could learn to be social with other people outside of your your own little bubble, pun intended. And she's all like, no, other than flat out, saying it's because, and the thing is, you could interpret it a number of ways. Because she's like, you're not, talking via Dot and Bubble was one thing. For us to be together in the same place at the same time is another thing. And she's like, you're not like us. Like, is it because he's black? Is it because he's an alien? Is it, because he's not tied to the technology like the rest of our, like there's so many different ways. And the fact that she says to him, you are not like us, but doesn't acknowledge Ruby, it makes me wonder if Ruby is not even a possibility, because she at least looks like them. She's white and blonde, but because she's associated herself with the doctor, she is persona non grata, even if she looks the part of the rest of them.
That's likely it.
Yeah.
Guilty by association, if you will.
Yeah, guilt by association. But it's like, I totally could feel the doctor's frustration. Like, irregardless of what their reason, I'm doing very big air quotes here, whatever their reason is for being racist, xenophobic, or whatever, because it's all bull crap. Just that, regardless of what their reasoning is, I can't see other than not even other than that. Like, I cannot see a way to justify allowing yourself to continue to be as ignorant and closed off from the rest of society as these people are.
Mm-hmm.
Though I think likely they met their deaths by the end of the episode, because the doctor was trying to tell them, don't go that way, you're probably going to die, don't get into the boat.
Because they have, like, they're like, we're going to go out into the woods. I'm like, you couldn't even walk down a sidewalk without running into a lamppost. Mm-hmm. How are you going to manage
or needing arrows?
Yeah. You're going to hunt for food? You're going to chop down trees and build housing? No. I give you a week at best.
They were like,
be generous, half hour.
Yeah,
exactly. but that was one of the strongest moments I
found.
I
figure, it takes up to a week. Yeah, with water, you can go a lot longer without food, but even then, after a while, you're going to starve to death at the very least. So give them a week.
Thinking the slugs,
if nothing else,
unless there's slugs in the water.
Yeah.
That'll happily gobble them up. But I agree with you, Rachel. I think that moment was one of the most poignant of the whole series. And it was so well written and so well acted. And as I mentioned before, what I loved about Dot and Bubble, which is definitely a standout episode, was one, it felt almost like Wes Anderson meets Jordan Peele, if you will. Kind of like, because I got some Get Out vibes from it. And that's what I'm like, I'm digging this, because, being a big fan of both Wes Anderson and Jordan Peele, I'm like, yeah, this is great. I love the marriage of the two.
Yeah.
And it was a dual commentary.
Yeah.
With what's been going on. With being so technologically hooked to addicted. And then the way we're treating others, it's just like, if we don't open our eyes, we're going to have slugs.
Yeah.
In some form or fashion, destroying us. And we need to take a step back and reevaluate things.
Yeah. Exactly. Oh. Ooh. Good old Doctor Who. Always pointing. Again, some of the discourse that I have seen is, people complaining that Doctor Who's gone woke or whatever. And it's like, no, Doctor Who, just like Star Trek, has always been woke.
And woke. Yeah. It's like, are you even watching the same show we are?
Yes. Like Doctor Who has always been, sometimes very in your face, but sometimes allegorical.
Social. Yeah.
About commenting about certain things, whether it's politics or environmentalism. Do I need to show you the Green Death again?
Right. Inferno.
Yeah. So really, I mean, the Doctor lost everything in war. So, can't be much more on the nose than that. So yeah, I just, and I understand, especially for someone like Russell T Davies, being, in a member of one of those groups that at the moment, socially is being, pointed out and going, no, because he is an openly gay man. That I'm sure, and that at least I'm sure somewhat colors, his decision making when it comes to what we've seen so far on Doctor Who, which I'm perfectly fine with that. If you can't draw on your own experiences, then what can you draw on? Yeah,
right.
I think it's almost inevitable if you're writing something, be it a movie or a book or what have you.
Yeah.
It will be colored by your experiences, be it consciously or subconsciously. It's almost inevitable.
Right.
Yeah.
Kind of the write what you know, but add extra twists or embellishments to make it, work with what you're doing.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And we should mention that, with the exception of Boom and Rogue, Russell T Davies did write all of the episodes. Stephen Moffat made his return writing Boom. So yeah, if that one seemed to hit a little differently, that's probably why.
Indeed. Isn't he writing the Christmas special as well?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. And then Rogue was written by Kate Herron and Bryony Redman. Which Kate Herron directed and was an executive producer on the first season of Loki. So, which I could see that a little bit in Rogue. So I've never watched Bridgerton, but like I get the whole Regency era type thing. So yeah, I get the look and the feel, and I love the fact that they played very much into the Bridgerton thing, and some of the music being played is popular music turned into chamber music.
Yep.
Because that's what they do on Bridgerton. I do know that. It's like, wait a minute, I know this song. This isn't just generic time, early 19th century period music.
And I loved the earrings.
Yeah,
It's like, don't press too hard, or you're gonna go to battle mode. I mean, that almost seems something like the Third Doctor would have done for one of his companions.
It's like, I don't have time to teach you Venusian Aikido, so here, wear these instead.
Here.
Yeah.
Man, you were reading my mind, Rachel.
And then battle mode ended up being Chekhov's gun, because that's exactly what she needed to do.
And of course, what brings one of them down is a book,
Yeah. Books. Yep. This is the 10th Doctor said, you want books? We're in a library. Weird segue connection. I guess maybe between the Devil's Cord and Rogue, we should talk about our guest stars.
Big time,
specifically, Jinkx Monsoon as the Maestro in Devil's Cord.
Fantastic.
Yeah. She is so good.
Yeah. I would not mind having the Maestro come back. Or at least Jinkx Monsoon and some other character find his way to bring them back.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, she's so good as the Maestro. Yeah, I know Jinkx Monsoon is a fantastic singer. So to have her play a character that does not allow music to exist kind of is like, you've got someone who's a really good singer. And you're not letting her show off one of her talents.
It kind of makes me think of Gilmore Girls, where Sebastian Bach was not the singer, but was like the drummer, was the guitarist of the band.
Yeah.
That they had, Rory's band.
Yeah. But yeah, I would love to see her come back, either as the Maestro or something else, because she was just so good, and those costumes were amazing. I look forward to seeing somebody pull off recreating one of those as for cosplay. And then in Rogue, we get Jonathan Groff, who I love.
He's
Broadway
come back.
legend, Jonathan Groff. Current, newest Tony Award winning performer, Jonathan Groff. Because he and his co-star, a certain former wizard, Daniel Radcliffe, both won Tonys for their roles in Merrily We Roll Along. So, but Jonathan Groff is just absolute legend when it comes to stage and screen. The fact that it's taken him more than 20 years to win that Tony is somewhat makes me tilt my head. But
wonder why. What were they thinking?
I have no idea. But yeah. I was first actually introduced to him on Glee, because he would bring in a lot of Broadway people as characters on Glee, and Again, I am terrible with faces and names and putting two and two together, so it did not be like, oh, I should know who this is for a while. But obviously he's the voice of Kristoff in Frozen. And he's the OG King George in Hamilton, Mr. Spit. If you've watched the Disney Plus version of Hamilton. Yep. The spit dribble scene around the world. He was fantastic, and I think it's from at least the way that they left it, Rogue will definitely be coming back at some point.
Likely.
Yeah, I'm thinking so.
So I some
think
people
he's kind of the stand-in for Captain Jack, since Captain Jack won't be returning.
Yeah. So he's Captain Jack-esque, but just different enough. I think.
Yeah.
And I think Jonathan and Ncuti had fantastic chemistry together.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, I just both of those guest stars were fabulous to have this season. So yeah. And then we get to our kind of not really two-parter, but kind of a two-parter ish with The Legend of Ruby Sunday and Empire of Death, and we find out that Ruby is human. She's human. Her father is human. Her mother was human. It was just her mom was it was a teenage pregnancy, and she knew that she could not give her baby the life that she deserved. So she got dropped off at that church, and moved on with her life. Which, I mean, yeah, it's very mundane, comparatively to some other revelations we've had, like, oh my God, River Song is the daughter of Amy and Roy. But it's also the truth for a lot of people. A lot of people, not just necessarily teenagers, but they find themselves, pregnant and not in a situation where they know they're capable of giving this human everything that they need to not only survive but thrive. It's a story that hundreds of thousands of people could tell. And just because that doesn't make Ruby extraordinary, because from her lineage, doesn't mean that she's not special. I mean, she was important enough to her mother to give her up so that she could have the life that she deserved.
But it's also the perceived value we give people, I think. It's like you give people and objects a value. It's a perceived value rather than the inherent value they have. And hence, you're like, this person is important because we feel we give them that importance. And they might just be the most run-of-the-mill person ever, but that's the whole thing, I think, between inherent value and perceived value of even just objects. People who collect things like license plates or bottles or what have you, and like they're just pieces of glass or they're just pieces of plastic, but we give those things value. And I think the same can be transferred from objects to people.
Yeah.
It's that kind of perceived value, I guess. But I know that you brought this up, Rachel, that our mutual friend Charles, who is adopted himself, was not particularly happy with how that was handled, in the sense of Ruby rushing to find her birth mother and Carla kind of almost being shoved aside. And Carla had kind of been the woman that had raised Ruby. And I apparently it rubbed him the wrong way. I guess him having had that experience of being an adopted kid. Granted, he mentioned on the episode Next Up where he did not want to meet or get to know his biological parents, but he felt that it was a little bit, it was handled a little bit. It could have been handled a little more delicately, if you will, when it came to Ruby's excitement about her birth mother compared to her adoptive mother, who had raised her since she was a baby.
Yeah. I mean, I know people that were adopted. I know people that have given up children for adoption. And the thing is, it's one of those situations where it is so personal and so unique to every situation. I know people that I know some people that know that they're adopted, and I have no desire to go looking for their biological parents because they don't. In their case, they whatever family that they were adopted into feels like their family, so they don't feel like anything's missing.
Agreed,
There are some people that they feel like something is missing. It is, one of those things where it's like, unless you felt it, it's not, I don't think it's something that can really be described. I've never been in that situation. I can kind of, in a somewhat similar-ish idea, if you think of, she's not adopted, but of Sophie in Mamma Mia, where she desperately wants to find her father. She's not adopted, but she never knew her biological father.
Right.
And she tries to, she's getting married, and, this is a big deal to her, and she wants her father to be able to give her away at her wedding. And, she's trying to explain to her fiance, Sky, that she's like, I literally feel like there's a part of me missing, and Sky can't wrap his head around it. He's like, am I not enough? And it's like, it's not that you're not enough. It's a different relationship. You're filling the slot of romance and spouse and that sort of relationship. She's feeling like there's something missing in the parental father slot. So it's not that the other people that have become that adopted person's, that person's family is not enough. It's just they've not filled that particular slot because they're not that person.
Right.
So I could, and in Ruby's case, it actually turned out okay, because when she does find her mother is, surprised, but she's not like, oh, no, I don't want anything to do with you. She wants to get to know her, and she wants to get to know the woman that raised her daughter. And she and Carla seem to have become friends rather quickly, because Carla can fill in the timeline for her. And she can also, Carla can be grateful that, fate or whatever brought Ruby to her, and Ruby's mother can be grateful that she can see that she made the right choice. That her daughter was taken in by someone kind that gave her love and affection and everything she needed so that she grew up into a wonderful person, because Ruby has grown up into a wonderful person, as far as we could tell. So, it's, I've never been in that situation. I don't think I ever will be. So I can't even begin to imagine what it was like. But what I know from hearing from other people's experiences, it's just one of those things that it's so unique to every situation that you can't be like, well, if you do, it's going to play out like this, and this. It's like, no, it's going to be different every single time. It's you know, some of it is biological, some of it is psychological. It's very, very complicated, and it's not something that could just be boiled down to, you know, parents, kid, boom, you know, happy family. It doesn't work like that.
Oh, no.
It's, you know, as I've said a number of times on Gold Standard, when we've had movies that hit a nerve with me as someone with parental issues, especially on the maternal side, you know, certain things are going to hit a certain way. So, and just because they're related doesn't mean that, you know, it's going to be all, you know, Betty Crocker, you know, 50s housewife, happy family, white picket fence, you know, type family situation. So I think in this case, you know, I didn't get the impression that Carla was getting swept aside, and she never came off that she was offended that Ruby was looking for her mother, or anything, or felt like she was being disrespected or anything. So I think, all things considering, I think that they painted this probably in the best possible light and, you know, outcome that one could ask for if you find yourself in that sort of situation.
It'll be interesting to see when and if when Ruby visits her birth father, because from what we gathered, at least, you know, from what I gathered, apparently he wasn't the nicest guy. So you do wonder whether, when she visits him, whether it will be the same scenario, or whether there might be some tension there between the two, if we get to see that, of course.
Yeah. Yeah, because technically the Doctor and Ruby have said goodbye to each other.
Yep.
But Millie is supposed to be sticking around for at least 1 or 2 more episodes, from what we've been told, before the new companion steps in, who, in very much a Doctor Who fashion, we got introduced to early.
Yes.
Very much like Clara.
Yep.
They're like, yeah, new companion. Oops, there she is. Or at least there's the actress that's going to be playing the new companion.
Yeah.
Maybe not
necessarily. Kind of like Donna
necessarily.
Noble as well, I suppose. It was kind of introduced early and then became a regular.
Yeah, but I mean, Donna ended up being like, I mean, I wasn't watching then, so I don't know what like the conversation was like. Like, I don't know like when things were announced and that sort of thing. Because, you know, we were introduced to Donna in a special.
Yep.
So it was, you know, that's kind of one thing, but this was more like how we were introduced to Clara, where they'd announced Jenna, but while we still had Amy and Rory as the companions, and people are all like, oh, you know, well, it's sad, we're gonna have to say goodbye to the Ponds, but hey, you know, new companion, that's sort of cool. And then boom, she appears in Asylum of the Daleks, like way before we're actually supposed to see her. There, you know, people are like, oh my god, that's Jenna Coleman, why is she here now? So you know, is what is gonna, you know, is this gonna be something similar, or where, you know, Jenna was playing a version of Clara, you know, one of those versions that, you know, got split when she jumped into the Doctor's time stream, or is this you know, is oh, what's her name? What is it? Verada?
Mm-hmm.
You know, if if Mundy is actually going to be the companion, or if it's going to be, or is she playing somebody else? So
I'm curious to see, I guess, when we get the Christmas special, either it will be kind of like when we have a temporary or one-time companion like we had with Kylie Minogue when it came to that particular Christmas special, or whether we'll be I mean, that's possibly what I'm thinking we'll probably get, is we'll probably get the Doctor on his own for the Christmas special, maybe teaming up with somebody temporarily for the Christmas special, and then when we get the next series, we'll have the new companion, but it's up for grabs, of course. But,
right, yeah.
Knowing the formula, we might get something like a Kylie.
Yeah, that is a possibility. I mean, and Verada, you know, she could end up playing a different character that is in no way related to the character she played in Boom. You know, it could be like, you know, with Freema, you know, where, you know, she was a cousin, or, you know, Karen, who was in Fires of Pompeii, completely different character.
Capaldi.
Yeah, so it could be something like that as well. You know, because, you know, it's England. They've got 12 actors in one rock quarry. So that's the way I mean, they're even pulling from BBC employees now for characters.
Yeah, it's like extras or just the two lines.
Because in The Devil's Cord, the old lady that ends up getting killed, that's Laura Jane Hudson. She was a costume designer for the BBC between 1978 and 1981. And then Jeremy Lim, who plays Timothy Drake, the discoverer of the Devil's Cord, his father was Doctor Who composer and BBC radiophonic workshopper Roger Lim. So, you know, again, 12 actors that are starting to pull from BBC employees. Oh my. I'm quite happy. Of course, you know, most of us are the mindset that any Who is good Who also. So
true.
It's better know Who. You know, it's a shame we have to wait until Christmas, but honestly, Christmas will be here before we know it. At this point,
5 months fly by.
Yeah. And we'll have to see. We'll have to see what, you know, as showrunner, what RTD decides to do. And since Stephen Moffat's writing the Christmas special, wrote the Christmas special, who knows what's going to happen? He'll probably make us afraid of something that we didn't know we needed to be afraid of again.
The other question I kind of had for you both, which was kind of on my mind too, is were you guys happy that for the moment we didn't get any classic villains like, say, the Daleks or the Cybermen or even the Master?
Oh yeah, it was nice.
Yeah. I know Ncuti said that he wants to face the Daleks at least once while he is the Doctor. Because every Doctor has to go against the Daleks at least once during their run.
One of the two, either Daleks or the Cybermen or both. Yeah,
he specifically wants the Daleks. But he has also said that he would love to see the Rani. So...
And the ongoing joke is it's never the Rani.
I am totally with you on that, Ncuti.
Yes.
Totally with you. I've been waving that flag for years. Bring back the Rani. So I got your back, dude. I got your back. So speaking of Kylie Minogue, though, did you like the nod to Kylie Minogue when we ended up on Rogue Ship?
Yes. Oh yeah, it's wired for sound.
Yeah. Nothing like can't get you out of my head to get into your head. I was like, that is a straight. I was like, I wonder how many people are not going to get that reference. Not really realizing that Kylie has been a guest star on Doctor Who.
It was a great nod.
So good.
But yeah, to your point of the Rani, it's wishful thinking on my part that Mrs. Flood might be the Rani because the whole
my
thing,
God.
you know?
Oh, that would be awesome if it was.
Yeah.
But as they say, it's never the Ranis. It's kind of always sad. It's kind of like with the MCU, it's never Mephisto as much as we want it to be Mephisto. So it's one of those
on House, it's never Lupus.
There you go.
Until that one time, it was Lupus.
Yeah, one of these times we're gonna roll in ones, but one time we're gonna hit that 20, and it is gonna be the Rani.
Yeah, and if RTD loves Classic Who the way he does, you'd think he'd bring the Rani back at some point.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the Rani can regenerate just like the rest of them. So, yeah.
Exactly.
Or Time Meddler. I mean, because wasn't he supposedly a Time Lord before we came up with the word Time Lord?
Possibly.
That takes me back. That was a great episode.
Yeah, the meddling monk.
That was a great episode. One of my favorite episodes.
Oh, good lord, the meddling monk. I think we need some time to recover from the the toy maker, the social toy maker, before we bring out the meddling monk.
Yeah, I know. Kind of same cloth almost.
I know.
But still, I mean, I guess Whovians can dream.
Yes. Oh.
If we could have Russell T Davies' ear for our episode, yeah. Here's our wish list.
Oh my! Any other thoughts?
I'm good.
I'm good.
Cool.
Waiting for December, can't come quick enough, but it will come.
Yeah. We'll be saying this and suddenly we're turning around like, oh, it's December already?
Yeah. Dang it. Alrighty. Well, if any of our listeners want to chime in with their opinion about this season of Doctor Who, you can send us a feedback. Our email is fivishfangirls@gmail.com, or you can go to our website, which is the fivishfangirls.com, where you can find links to all of the things our Goodreads book club. So we keep the Doctor Who conversation going all year long. Between Doctor Who books and Big Finish audios, we got plenty to go around to keep us occupied. There's also links to all of our various social media accounts if you want to follow us on things like Instagram and the Facebooks. You can also find links to our individual social medias as well if you want to follow us individually. If you would like to financially support us, you can do so. Various other links, including becoming a regular supporter on Patreon. We definitely love our patrons, and giving you little bits and bobs every now and then that nobody else gets. You can also do one-time donations through Ko-fi or PayPal if you like. Anything that goes in through PayPal will go to our nonprofit, Fangirls Give Back, but it all helps us in all manner of things. Or if you want some merch, you can go to our Redbubble shop and buy t-shirts and stickers and all the fun things. All the stuffs. And we appreciate all your support financially and otherwise. And Nick, do you want to do your blurb?
I'll do my best to keep it as concise as I can. So when
it's not like he's on like 12 different shows or something.
Well, yes. Well, though we don't play Kylie Minogue, if you are fans of country music, you can find me hosting the radio show Whiskey and Cigarettes, my day job, where we play the very best and nothing but the best of country music for you guys, from Alabama to Zach Brown. And for more information about that, you can visit our website, which is whiskeyandcigarettesshow.com. We talked a little bit about the MCU during a little bit of tangents on this episode. So if you're fans of superhero movies, you can find myself and Keith Bliss on Happiness and Darkness, the superhero movie podcast. We discuss any and every superhero movie under the sun. Coming up this week, we will be reviewing, we're going back to the DC animated world. We will be reviewing Batman Hush, which I'd never seen the animated version. I knew the comic book story. They're completely different, so I was happily surprised. So that's what we're doing there. And of course, as Rachel mentioned, myself, Rachel, and Zan can be found on Gold Stand, the Oscars podcast, where we've kind of run out of the Best Picture winning movies. And as we wait for the 97th Best Picture to reveal itself, we're reviewing movies that we have selected. And coming up next, Chrissy, of course, of the Fiveish Fangirls, has selected us to review the Chipmunk Adventure in a couple of weeks. Looking forward to that. And I know Zan, who's seen every movie under the sun, has not seen that movie, and I was actually shocked. So I guess we'll see what we make of that. And last, but certainly not least, myself and Charles Skaggs, who's been mentioned a few times on this episode. Him and I will be returning to the fandom zone. We wrapped up Dead Boy Detectives. We'll be coming back to review the latest season of The Boys. So that's me in a nutshell.
And in between that, occasionally we watch footy and tennis.
Yes.
Indeed, yes, the Euros return tomorrow.
Yay!
Yes.
Unfortunately, cousin Matt did not make it out of his was not successful in this year's doubles matchups at Wimbledon. So,
yeah, apparently he's getting ready
they tried
for the Olympics, so I guess that's what will be his next stop. And his wife was telling my mom that they're enjoying London, so they're happy with the way things went.
Nice.
Good.
Nice. So yeah. All the things. So,
Yes.
well, thank you, Nick, for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
I would say, especially because it's the middle of the night for you, but we know you're on America time most of the time anyway. So
Indeed. Yeah, well, thank you very much for having me. I had a blast.
Yep. And hopefully it'll be the 4-ish again next week. So, but until then, we shall sign off for this week.
This is Holly from Wisconsin saying good evening.
And this is Rachel in Indianapolis, Indiana. And that's how the story of the church on Ruby Road comes to an end. With a very happy ending for our little Ruby Sunday. But life goes on, doesn't it? Ruthlessly. And what happens, you might wonder? Oh, what happens to that mysterious traveler in time and space known as the Doctor? I'm sorry to say his story ends in absolute terror. Night-night. Thank you, our Fiveish fam, for joining us on this week's geeky journey. If you enjoyed the show, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review. Stay connected with us on our website, thefiveishfangirls.com, and follow us on most social media with @FiveishFangirls. Plus, check out our nonprofit, Fangirls Give Back, to see how we're making a positive impact in our community. Until next time, stay nerdy and let the squee continue.